There are two narratives going on right now about AI. One is that AI is simply a bubble. Now, in the other camp, we have that AI is a productivity revolution unlike anything we've seen since electricity. Now, they both can't be right. So what are we really seeing? And the truth is, it's weirder than you think. Here's the major problem that we get into. There's no clear data that supports empirically one way or another yet. And there's actually a reason for that. But let's get one thing straight before we dive into that. It is not the GDP, it is not stock prices, it is productivity that makes us wealthier. It is productivity that builds and fuels the economy. That is output per hours worked. This is the only thing that makes society richer without simply just working more or printing more money, which doesn't work. When productivity rises, effort produces more. And that surplus flows into wages, it flows into margins, it flows directly into asset prices, bank accounts, and fuels the economy. So when people say, is AI real? What they're really talking about is AI really a productive engine that will revolutionize the economy? Because if it is, that changes everything. It changes everything downstream, just like the industrial age, electricity, and the internet did. So let's look at what we can actually measure. We're also going to take a look into some of my companies and how we've implemented AI. So it's just not theoretical, but you can actually see application. Now, we can look to controlled studies. I'm talking about real experiments, not just vibes. And these experiments are showing gains anywhere from 10 to 50% increase in productivity. Now, remember, this is just one part, and this isn't empirical evidence that the AI productivity is as real and as big as we are thinking, but it is a starting point. We can see here where AI productivity is actually showing up as of now. The first one that no one is surprised about, software development, which dramatically increased productivity. The next is professional writing, which once again, I don't think anyone is really surprised by that. But we also saw cross-study averages of around 25%. Customer support increased productivity around 15%. And I think most people would agree this is where we're seeing AI and productivity gains. But here's what matters the most in the studies and what we've seen in AI. And that's the biggest gains don't go to the superstars in the organization. They actually go to the least experienced workers. AI compresses the skills gap and it pulls bottom towards the top. So what that means is at a single task, a single worker, a single team, the productivity is real, it's measurable. And even better, it's repeatable. But this brings the question, if the measurable results in these areas are so big, then why can't economists find them in the national numbers? Because that's the biggest thing, is the data is harder to find in the national numbers as of now. Because over the last 2 years, the honest answer is economists couldn't. This creates a productivity paradox. People are feeling that the gains are way more than they actually show up measurably. The NBER surveyed nearly 750 CFOs' perceived gains, and they were big. But the measured gains were much smaller than the perceived gains of those C-suites. There's actually a really clear explanation for this, and it's called the J-curve. You see, when general purpose technology shows up, companies have to spend a lot of money. They have to spend that money first. They have new tools, they have to build new systems, new workflows, and more to adopt those general tools and technologies into their already built systems. all of that investment is messy. It is reworking. It is capital dollars actually being spent. It is restructuring, including restructuring and a revisit of how they think about mainline items like salary expenses and what the people that they're paying are going to do and how they're going to do it. Now, the AI apocalypse killing millions and millions of jobs has not shown up. In fact, the labor pool got better, meaning jobless claims were not up. Hiring was. That was after a lull that we saw right when AI really began to come out. We immediately saw jobless claims rise, and we saw that job openings were down. Now, people argue, was that simply due to AI, or was that due to the economy as a whole and high interest rates? But there's also kind of a middle ground. The reason was organizations were reworking their internal processes and systems around AI. That also meant they had to put a pause. They didn't exactly know what they were hiring for, who they were hiring, or what necessarily they would be doing in that job position and within that workflow. This created almost like a pause. But in recent, it has actually turned and they're hiring more. This is always true when we see technology like this come in. Productivity dips before it climbs, and the shape of that curve is a J. And we are in the build out phase. Spending heavy while payoff is still loading, so to speak. This is what every previous technology cycle has looked like, right before it paid off big. The flat part at the bottom is not failure, it is the setup. And the top of that J, that's what people are really arguing about. How big will it be? Will it be revolutionary or not? But here's what got my attention. In the third quarter of 2025, the US labor productivity jumped almost 5%. That is against a long run of about 2%. One quarter, now that may not be a trend, that can be noise. But this was a move, and it started to look like the beginning phase of harvest. The thing is, it is not evenly spread. Early gains are concentrated. They always are. High-skilled finance, lending, manufacturing, construction, those things fall further behind. The build-out is within the sectors that are pouring the most capital into it. But it's actually that concentration which tells us what's going on, and that tells what might be in store. It's not lifting all boats at once. These are very specific boats that it's lifting. So here's the reality of it. This happens in tiers, in phases, and it always has. Right now, the micro evidence is strong, but the macro evidence is lagging. Or I should really say it's emerging. But the full payoff is definitely unconfirmed. Anyone that is telling you that AI has already changed the economy, well, they are definitely looking ahead, because the macro payoff is still unconfirmed. But anyone that is telling you that AI is simply a nothing burger is ignoring what's actually happening and what's happening on the ground and the real results that are being seen. Because in reality, it's in between. But this is exactly where that opportunity lives. Now, how revolutionary will AI be? Well, that is all over the board based upon people's opinions and what they believe will occur and happen. And to be honest, I don't think that anyone really knows. We can look back to the internet. All the people that said the internet was a nothing burger, including top economists like Paul Krugman, who said it was the equivalent to the fax machine, which we all know how that story ended up turning out. So the markets today are still arguing whether this data is showing empirical evidence that this is completely revolutionary and our lives will be nothing like they are today, or if this is a simple means of production that shortens workflows, adds helps, lifts workers, or if this is an apocalypse where no one will have jobs and no one will have to work. Which, by the way, the apocalypse scenario is said with basically every single technology revolution that's ever occurred, including the industrial age. But I can look within my own organizations, and the impact is real and meaningful. So let me share with some of my organizations what they're currently doing and what the outcome has been. We have zero backfilled in operational roles, even though the company has grown tremendously. We've eliminated multiple third-party call centers and positions due to AI. We had 6 operational roles that were eliminated, and once again, like those, no backfill, meaning that we have no plans on hiring for them. We have ops positions, system admin, even maintenance positions due to workflow consolidation and our ability to link directly in with third parties that have gone away. And no backfill. We're not planning on filling those jobs. At the same time, that company has grown by 30+%, and the outcomes are better. Now, this isn't just about eliminating jobs or not hiring jobs for those positions. In fact, the salary was reallocated. We found opportunity to hire for different positions, to allocate our capital into executives and others. Our current existing workers became more productive, allowing them. I like to think of this part in the job within our organization and others is this isn't eliminating salary, it's reallocating salary, just like other technology revolutions did. While one sector or one part of the organization didn't need to hire anymore or even cut workforce, they were expanding others. In economic terms, this is called creative destruction and is a very key, real part of the economy that's important, meaning the old way goes away, and that opens up new, better ways to be productive with new industries, new abilities, tools, and resources. This is exactly why I think we saw what we saw in the labor market. The creative destruction part happened first, but then immediately there was a reallocation of capital, and the jobs in the economy, as we saw in this year, picked up, didn't go down. But the scope within our organization, in our different departments, expanded greatly. We expanded reporting, we expanded our revenue, our occupancy number, forecasting, reconciliation, and allocation. To put this into actual numbers, right around 400 hours a month is now being supported by AI. This was achieved while we entered into new markets, we expanded our geographical footprint, and grew the business. In the software companies, it used to take us 4 months to deliver a new feature, whereas today we can do 4 new features in a month without expanding the workforce. The key is to understand the cycles, the setup, and the yield, and to find the opportunities within the change. It is also important to realize the hype and what it is, and that is simply people trying to figure out and look at what a future may look like, but not necessarily actually happening. That is the same with the doomsday sayers. Evidence isn't supported. They are simply looking at and how they feel about what's happening, and they're going to extremes on both ends. The reality is almost always in the middle, and it has been said over and over and over again through all technological advances. It's the same narratives. We will either have flying cars or no one will have jobs. And if you buy into that extreme hype, you lose sight of reality and where the opportunity is and how to use it. And this is the part that is probably slowing AI down the most. The application. The vast majority of people, including business owners, look at AI as a really good Google, not understanding what it means to condense workflows, and create outcomes, unable to apply it. That takes time, that takes infrastructures. But we can see in the industries and the operators that are implementing it and have used it that the results are real. They are there and productivity is going up. What will that look like at mass adoption? Just like the internet, we saw the early gains from early adopters, and then by the end of the cycle and the end of the productivity gains, it was universally adopted. Don't be the people at the end, because creative destruction in the economy is real. It's an important piece, and that will never change, or we will never have productivity gains. And you don't want to be on the destruction side. Make sure you're following if you want to learn more about how you can implement, use AI, and where to invest in it to actually get the real yield.